Hi, and welcome to Shadow Talk's weekly intelligence summary track, where our team of analysts dive into the top threat intelligence stories each week. To read their full findings and analysis, make sure to visit resources.digitalshadows.com. Now here's your host, Harrison Van Riper.
What's up, everybody? I'm HVR, and we're back again with another Shadow Talk weekly intelligence update. I'm back in Dallas, back with you, Christian. Finally getting some sleep in my own bed, which is extremely nice. And Christian, you're lucky that I'm in the office this week because I've been so tired from all of my travels. And it's your birthday week as well.
Yeah, well, you're the one to talk. It's your birthday day, so happy birthday to you.
That's kind of like a shameless plug for me to get a happy birthday from you.
Yeah, it really is. I know what you're doing, and it's not altruistic like you're meaning to be.
It's not. It's not. No.
Okay.
Wish me more happy birthdays.
Okay.
Just more throughout the day. So yes, that's Christian Rankin. Christian, what is your Twitter handle, by the way? Your current one?
It's Cristiano73214.
No, it's not. Don't lie.
I think it is.
Is it really?
Yeah.
That's very complicated.
Yeah,
I feel like you should change it. This is for all the listeners that want to go out there and follow Christian on Twitter.
Okay, well, let's just link my Twitter handle at the bottom of the...
Not going to do that.
All right, well... Yeah.
Also on the line with us this week is Jamie Collier, the Collier Jam on Twitter, a much more straightforward Twitter handle. How are you?
Yeah, very good. Obviously, happy birthday. I think for me, the main concern is that this maybe takes the attention away from me. So we just need to make sure that I'm included plenty in the podcast.
Sorry, I don't mean to take the attention away from you. And listeners, you can't see this, but Jamie's hair looks excellent today. We were just talking about it before we started recording, and he's using a new sea salt spray, which I feel like I need to use this now. Can I get that in the States?
Absolutely, yeah. I think it's just, and obviously we were discussing shampoo techniques as well, so a lot to unpack.
Mainly I need to know because I don't have nearly as much hair as Jamie does.
Yeah, I know. I'm sitting over here jealous too, but
it kind of pains me.
What can you do?
On my birthday, no less, you have way better hair than I do. All right. So, that's actually another good question. Jamie, when are you going to come over to Dallas? When you show you all the good barbecue spots?
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to come. Obviously, maybe you guys, as I've said many a time, maybe you guys could all kind of pitch in, raise a bit of money for me to come over. But I don't eat meat, so as long as there's some kind of veggie barbecue going on, that could be a bit of a deal breaker in terms of if you kind of get my time or not.
How did I not know that you do not eat meat? I feel like I should know this.
I don't know. I don't like to talk about myself too much.
I did know this.
You did?
Yeah. So.
Well, okay. So then on that note, actually, we have apparently, I haven't been yet, but there's apparently a very good vegan barbecue place here in Dallas that they make actual vegan brisket.
Yeah, I believe it. I don't know of it, but yeah, I believe it.
Yeah. All right. Well, enough pleasantries. On to the main story of this week. There was a supply chain attack on Asus, which enabled backdoor access on at least 500,000 devices. Jamie, tell me more.
Yeah, so this campaign was referred to as Operation Shadowhammer. Currently, the threat actor is unidentified. But as you said, it compromised the servers of the device manufacturer Asus and effectively pushed illegitimate software updates to Asus devices between June and November 2018. As the Asus server was itself compromised, this meant that the updates, when they were pushed, they had legitimate Asus certificates. And that meant for users that they appeared as authentic software updates. Clearly here, the scale of the compromises is quite significant. At least 500,000 users' devices were compromised with this kind of initial backdoor. Some reports suggesting that could actually be closer to 1 million. But then I think what's really interesting and even puzzling about this incident is that the vast majority of these devices weren't targeted. The initial kind of malware within the backdoor had a list of 600 MAC addresses, and if a device matched one of those, additional malware was installed. But if there wasn't that kind of match, then the malware stayed silent. So I think what's kind of strange about this is that we tend to look at these kind of supply chain or kind of software update attack vectors as something that would appeal to a threat actor due to the scale and kind of breadth that you get in terms of, able to compromise a lot of devices. So to use this kind of attack vector to actually conduct something much more targeted is very strange. I guess it suggests that that the threat actor is really sophisticated, that they're able to go to all this length just to target, say, 600 devices. But it also indicates a level of operational sophistication. To get those MAC addresses, and for context here, each device has this kind of unique MAC address. So that would suggest that the threat actor would have conducted some sort of prior reconnaissance, prior understanding of the MAC addresses that they're after. It means it's pretty targeted. Not only would the threat actor need to know the MAC addresses of targets, but it would also need to know that they are using ASUS devices. So quite a complex kind of attack chain here. Threat actor has to compromise a software vendor or a hardware manufacturer in order to then get towards their initial target. So all quite interesting there.
So have we seen any activity like this previously?
Yeah, so 2017 software update attack vectors were used. First, not in the NotPetya ransomware. That infected victims via a malicious update. But then also with CCleaner, where the application delivered malware via update again. Interestingly, this latest report on Operation Shadowhammer did draw some parallels with CCleaner. There was some suggestion there that the campaigns could be linked, but we didn't really see any of that hard evidence. The CCleaner incident had been kind of linked partially to APT17, but I think to say that Operation Shadowhammer is linked to APT17, for me, it's a bit too soon, because the link between CCleaner and Operation Shadowhammer isn't fully established, and then I'm not sure we've kind of seen those smoking guns as well in terms of CCleaner and APT17. The link there, I think, was an overlap in code rather than anything more concrete.
Sure. Yeah, no, that makes sense. So do people need to be worried about updating their devices then?
No, I don't think so. I think for the most part, it's still a very good idea, highly recommended to keep your devices updated. But obviously there is that kind of tangential risk that individuals, organizations will kind of see this as a headline, and they might resist updating their systems out of fear of that kind of compromise. But actually the security benefits of updating software significantly outweigh the risks of a supply chain compromise. So all users should really ensure their systems remain up to date. And obviously kind of worried about you, Harrison, here. I know you can get quite lazy when it comes to updating your devices. You're one of those people that clicks maybe tomorrow.
I just keep
trying an hour.
Postpone. Cool. Well, yeah. So no, I would say yes, definitely update your devices, keep them patched as much as possible. All right, cool. So that was a really interesting story from this week. Let's move on to the highlights from this week. Christian, what do we have?
Cool. So we've got some good stuff from this week. So recently, security researchers published details on 2 new data breach events attributed to the MageCart threat group, which affected the platforms MyPillow and AmeriSleep. So they were going after our sleeping habits, which really
how dare
hits
they?
Home. Yeah, that hurts. So MyPillow was reportedly targeted in October 2018. The group first registered a typo squatted domain and used the free certificate authority Let's Encrypt to implement the SSL cert. The group then added a script to the MyPillow website, which connected to an obfuscated JavaScript-based skimmer hosted on the spoofed domain. Following this, the attackers then registered another typo squatted domain, which impersonated MyPillow's legitimate live support chat service. AmeriSleep, on the other hand, was reportedly first compromised by MageCart in April 2017. So this goes back quite a bit. Attackers used spoof domains to host skimming code active on the company's website until at least October 2017. Following this, the attacks used a GitHub account repository titled AmeriSleep to host the code. Finally, in January 2019, the website was identified as running a skimming code previously attributed to MageCart, which contained conditional checks to only run on a payment and checkout pages. So that's what we've got there.
Cool. Mm-hmm. So I mean, this is, I guess, another example of previous MageCart activity now being identified as MageCart activity since the big explosion of Magecart activity, right? Because it's not a new thing. It's kind of like they compromised them previously, and
right, exactly. I think the important bit there that you just highlighted is research was identified on this date, but it's not when that happened.
right.
So it's good to shine a light on that kind of activity that's happened in the past. And
Yeah. But ongoing Magecart reporting still coming out.
Yeah, and there's no reason to think it's going to stop. So.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Jamie, what do you have?
Yeah, so there's been some new activity by Fin7. Fin7's a kind of financially motivated threat group. Been involved in previous attacks targeting a variety of sectors, typically in the United States. But these two new kind of malware variants, one called kind of SQL Rat, is purposed to communicate with a Microsoft SQL database, kind of controlled by the attackers in an attempt to execute its content on a targeted host. And then the second one, DNSBot, that's a multi-protocol backdoor that can receive and transmit remote commands and exfiltrate targeted data to the attacker's command and control server. So, really kind of designed to kind of keep that communication flow going. So we don't know exactly what's going on in terms of the campaigns they've been used in, but it does kind of appear like it's ongoing, and they were first observed in use in January 2018. I think what this actually tells us is the group remains active. There were 3 of its members were arrested in August 2018. So it would appear that the group have been able to overcome that. Maybe suggests that they have a kind of a high level of organization. They're a group with maybe different subgroups. And it's not just kind of one small collective. So I think, we're probably likely to expect additional attacks as part of these campaigns within the next 3 months.
Gotcha. Interesting. All right, Christian, third highlight of the week.
Yeah, third highlight. So Locker Goga comes up again. For all those listeners who listened to last week, I believe the main topic had to do with Locker Goga infecting Norsk Hydro, the Norwegian company.
Locker Goga being a ransomware.
Locker Goga is a ransomware, yes. So what we saw this week, 2 American chemical companies were impacted by what appears to be the Locker Goga ransomware. So you've got Hexion and Momentive, 2 companies that merged in 2010. I think that bit's important. They're global distributors of specialty chemicals and performance materials such as resins and silicon. Based on the ransom file generated on the infected computers, it appears that the ransomware that encrypted the company's machines was the Locker Goga variant. So what happens is after the computer's files are encrypted, the user will get prompted with a text file that will have pretty much the same type of demand for how to pay the ransomware. So that was at the time of writing, that's how they were identifying that as Locker Goga. What happened to Hexion and Momentive? Apparently the business operations side were not affected. However, the corporate operations were, which is a little bit of a divergence from what we've seen it affecting in the past. I'm not sure how much you can read into that, but I found that difference interesting.
So the business side being the operations side?
The manufacturing.
The manufacturing.
Yeah,
okay, gotcha.
Thanks,
Gotcha.
Yeah. And the Momentive CEO named Jack Boss has stated that the data on the affected computers was probably lost. So
interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, I think there's also some other rumors going around that Locker Goga is acting more as a wiper, kind of locking it out and then not allowing people to actually pay the ransom to unencrypt or decrypt.
Yeah, you're right. There are rumors that say that, and I think we need to keep in mind that those are just rumors. We don't know that yet, but that definitely checks out. So the proliferation of the ransomware throughout the network is a lot slower than you see with other ransomwares. And then also the fact that you are prompted to email those who have infected your device, and then you kind of like barter down a price about what you're going to pay. From what I've heard, you can just understand that the scalability of that would not be what it would be compared to other ransomware.
So it's more targeted.
Possibly. I mean, I want to say yes, but I don't think we can definitively say yes to that yet.
Sure. Cool. Interesting. All right. Is there anything else going on that the listeners should keep an eye out for in the future? Jamie, why don't you go first?
Yeah, so maybe something to watch is the Israeli legislative elections coming up on the 9th of April. We've seen in the last few weeks stories of prominent Israeli political figures having their devices compromised. Not entirely clear who's behind this. It's been linked to Iran, but potentially also associated with Israeli political opponents. But I think what we might see coming up is potentially leaks as a result of compromised devices. This might be incidents that have occurred well in the past, but this would be an opportune time to release any sensitive information. Potentially some interference there, given Israel sits in a kind of controversial spot within the Middle East. Obviously, if Iran is kind of linked to some of this activity, we could also see the flip side of this, so Israel actually retaliating towards any kind of attempts to kind of interfere.
All right, cool. So is there anything else going on?
Well, one thing maybe to watch is that the European Parliament has just voted in favour of Article 13. This is a kind of new controversial copyright law that will introduce tougher restrictions on posting copyrighted material online, maybe affect some of the kind of YouTubers out there. So nothing kind of concrete about this, but we could potentially see a bit of a backlash from some ideologically motivated threat actors or hacktivists, maybe some kind of actors that are linked to kind of internet freedom movements, for example.
Yeah, the YouTubers, when you try and stamp on their memes, they're gonna get angry. I mean, honestly, like with the whole PewDiePie thing, that was obviously a very big sort of not a major event, but it was something that affected some people. So could be that something happens on the back end of that.
But I don't think they'd be able to meme back and protest.
That's true. They could not. Yeah. All right, cool. Well, that wraps up the intelligence summary for this week. Remember to share this podcast with your friends and tell them to subscribe, because that would be awesome. Raphael actually did a really interesting episode with Richard Gold and a high-frequency trading expert talking about mergers and acquisitions, sharing of insider knowledge, manipulating stock prices, and attacks against the financial services industry, and how all that comes together. It's really interesting episode, so go and listen to that. All right, so then the question for this week. So I recently changed my Twitter handle, and there were really funny handles that I wanted to use, but they were already taken, which was very and nobody was actually using them, right? The really good ones. So I was like, I really want this, but I can't have it. And so that makes me angry. So if you could have any Twitter handle, what would it be?
I think I'll jump in here because at the start of this podcast we established that I have a terrible Twitter handle, which I don't dispute. Younger Christian didn't know what he was doing.
Come on, younger Christian.
I think given recent events, I think I'm going to go with @anti-vaxxer. I think that would be
you're the anti-vax.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm gonna.
So you're just vax.
Yeah, that's the trench I'm willing to die in.
Okay.
Yeah,
I think that's fair.
Yep,
that's fair. All right, Jamie, what you got?
Well, I don't know. As listeners will know, I go by the Collier Jam.
It's a good one.
I have thought about just Collier Jam in the past, but some swine had the handle, got suspended, and now the handle sits in this kind of no man's land.
Oh, no.
I mean, Twitter, what up with that? I mean, you need to release the handle from this kind of Twitter purgatory that it's in at the moment. But I mean, if I could,
yeah,
yeah. I think if I could have any handle, though, I would have yours, Harrison. I would comprehend your online persona. I'd run a smear campaign by posting inappropriate tweets, tarnish your reputation. Ultimately, with the ambition to dethrone you as the podcast host, as listeners, I'm sure will have realised by now it's a position I've long coveted for myself.
I would just like to point out that Searchlight would have picked that up.
That's true. That is true. So, little minor plug there for Digital Shadows. But well, I appreciate that you would go through such great lengths to take over my online persona. I think you're probably the only one. All right, cool. Well, yeah, and I wouldn't change it. I just changed it, so I like mine.
Yeah,
pseudo HBR. But one of the ones that I did want to change it to, just because I thought it would be funny, would be like @whatever. Just be like some like blasé thing, like whatever. Tweet me at whatever.
Oh, like literally out.
Yeah, like @whatever, and somebody already has that.
Yeah.
Back when I wanted to get it, like a couple years ago, nobody was like, they weren't using it at all, and I was like, how can I get around this? I need @Jack.
@Jack, yeah.
All right. Well, listeners, that will do it for us from this week. Thank you, guests. Thank you, listeners. Thank you, Twitter. Talk to y'all next week.